we better wake up because this is the future. Our children are the future. I've been on ed and labor committees where they say, we're not teaching that in our school systems. You can't prove it. I said, yes, I can. And that's at a federal level. So document, 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 because if you don't, it's like it never happened.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon Lewis, founder of the Tennessee Conservative. Today, Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger, representing Tennessee's 1st Congressional District, joins us. A native East Tennessean, Congressman Diana Harshbarger was born in Bloomingdale, a small community right outside of Kingsport, and was the first in her immediate family to graduate from high school and college. She attended East Tennessee State University and graduated from Mercer University College of Pharmacy with her doctorate. Diana has been a licensed pharmacist and successful business owner for over 3 decades, and she is dedicated to fighting for East Tennessee's priorities, including healthcare reform, economic development, combating the tragic opioid epidemic, which is getting worse, and expanding in Tennessee. And she wants broadband for rural communities, which is very important. She currently serves on the House Education and Labor and the House Homeland Security Committees. She's an active member of her Kingsport community, teaching Sunday school, helping with her church's mission work and other local nonprofits. She and her husband, Robert, currently reside in Kingsport, where they are, and if they're not in their farm at Unicoi. Diana has 1 son and 2 grandsons. Diana, welcome to the program again. Thank you for being here.
Oh, Brandon, it's always a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm not going to keep you. You've got a rubber chicken dinner to go to, so we got to talk about this stuff and then let you move on to it. Tell me quickly about what you were hearing from parents in your district regarding the sensitive, graphic, and even harmful subjects being taught in Tennessee public schools, where you think none of that would be, but we get reports of it every day. What are people bending your ear about?
Well, they're alarmed that their children would be taught such obscene material, basically. And, you know, you send your children to school to get an education and you trust the school system to do that. But that's not the case in a lot of these areas. And, you know, I think I was talking to another colleague from Tennessee the other day, and they said that I think it was a librarian that came and read one of the books out of the library, and the graphic content, they had to stop and mute that. How pathetic is that, that any kindergarten, 1st grade, anybody could go in and pull that book out? You know, we should be teaching ABCs, not SEX, to our students. That's bad. That's very bad. And it is alarming to these parents. They don't know what to do or where to turn.
So you've got a proposed law, and it's the No Obscene Teaching in Our Schools Act. What does it do, and why do we need it now, and who else is helping you with this effort?
Well, Dr. Mark Green, who is Representative Green from Tennessee, he asked me to help with this bill because parents were contacting him. Parents from the 1st District are also contacting our office. And what it does, it prohibits federal funding to going to schools that violate their state laws about obscenity or whatever laws they put in place as far as education goes. And that way, at a federal level, we can bring the hammer down and say, okay, that's not acceptable. You can't be teaching that to our students. And that's where we stand with that bill.
So in Tennessee, we recently passed a law banning the teaching of critical race theory. Yet it is still being taught in many schools. I have people send me just today, send me a video at Tyner School, which is just right down the road from me. And it basically, the title of it was "I Am Black and I'm a Threat." And it is amazing. And it's being taught, it's being shown, it's just 100% CRT. But enforcement seems to be lacking. You know, what would you suggest parents and Tennesseans do in these situations where we have laws passed, but for whatever reason, there's so much leftism and liberalism steeped into our educational system here in Tennessee? They seem to almost take it as a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, people will skirt the law if they possibly can, or they'll find a loophole. They'll work around it. This has been going on a long time, Brandon, and that's why if you cut that federal funding and you give them the option of taking that money with them or putting it in a 529, they're going to sit up and take notice. And you're going to have resistance from teachers unions and things of that nature. You're going to have people who say, you can't do that. This is education for our children. I hear it all the time. Look, that parent has the absolute right to determine where they want their children to be educated and how they want them to be educated. And we learned that with the Virginia governor's race. And if the pandemic didn't do anything, by gosh, it uncovered what is going on in our educational systems, K through 12, and also in college and universities. And we have to put a stop to that. I look at some of the things that are being taught, and it breaks my heart. I raised my son to be a conservative, and he is a good Christian, and he knows what he wants his two sons to learn. And you have to be a valid protector of your children. And, I probably said this before. I used to say it was a fatherless society, Brandon, but it is a parentless society these days. And, we have the TV and YouTube and all these things teaching our children. We don't even know. We don't go to the library. We don't go to these book sales anymore as parents. But we better wake up, because this is the future. Our children are the future. And it's kind of like you were talking about, why are they not enforcing these laws that are already on the books? Well, that's to ask your state legislators. And I'll tell you this, take every bit of that information that you're sending them and you compile a file of evidence that says, oh, yes, it is. Because I've been on ed and labor committees where they say, we're not teaching that in our school systems. You can't prove it. I said, yes, I can. And that's at a federal level. So document, because if you don't, it's like it never happened. Get that evidence, put it into a folder, talk it to your state representatives and your state senators about it, and demand that they do something to enforce that. We're trying to do that at a federal level. Dr. Green and myself, and we're putting that legislation forward to try to ban that. Look at the Supreme Court. I'll just give you an example. The Supreme Court sets down the law of the land, like Title 42. Do you think the Biden administration enforced that? No. The Supreme Court doesn't have an army to go enforce the rulings that they put down. So it's up to the state to take that law and enforce it, bottom line. And federally, if we can cut funding off, let me tell you what gets people's attention. It's all about the money and the appropriations. If you threaten to cut them off, they might just wake up and say, oh, really? Oh, well, maybe we do need to pull that book. But it's up to the parents to make that noise and talk to your state legislators about it. Because I'm doing what I can do at the federal level, and we'll see how far that goes.
Well, we always hear it's all about the kids, but I learned through the pandemic, as it relates to educating kids, it was really all about the money. And before you go, I was wondering if you might be able to talk for a moment about school choice. I remember when I heard a speaker at the Republican National Convention, I think it was the year after Trump was elected, there was a huge push for school choice. I could not believe I was hearing it. But as you know, we're having some serious issues with academics and school environment in Tennessee. This year, we could not get a single piece of meaningful school choice bills out of the General Assembly. We even had one that said, hey, if you're just in the bottom 10%, and with reading scores being at 25% on grade level, that means if you're at a school that's at the bottom 10%, that means only maybe about 2.5 to 5% of those kids can read at grade level. And Republicans killed it and
Wow.
wouldn't let it get out. And I'm wondering at the federal level, are you hearing anything about that? Because right now in Tennessee, if you're not wealthy or if you don't homeschool, you really don't have any school choice. Do you think there's any hope for any federal movement? Probably, maybe not now, but maybe a couple years from now.
Well, if I serve on the Education and Labor Committee, and we're getting ready to start to reauthorize the Higher Education Act. So we will see, even with K through 12, there has to be reform in this, but you've got wealthy unions, these teachers unions that push an agenda. For God's sakes, we just had a report that the CDC changed their language based on what the teachers union sent them about masked in school and to keep those schools closed. It is a web, a deceitful web that is being laid down here. And we just have to navigate that to uncover what they're trying to cover up. And so I'll work on as hard as I can at federal level, because federal level, whatever's the most stringent law is going to be in place. But at the federal level, we need to take action. Let those people, if their school's not teaching them what they want them to teach, or not teaching them the basics like math and science and reading, for God's sakes, how many people graduate and they can't read? That is pathetic. So we need to take a look at reauthorizing a whole lot of things. But there's power with lobbyists. There's power with unions. And we have to face that, and we have to go at it in a way that the power is with the parent, Brandon. And it is those people who have to push those buttons at the local level. I tell everybody, all politics is local. It doesn't matter who you are. You better do your due diligence when you put those people on the school board, or you put them in the mayorship, or as commissioners, as aldermen. It all matters, because they want to infiltrate at every level of government with deceitful things like what they're doing to our students. And we just have to be diligent about pointing it out and making sure those people believe the way we want them to believe. That's what I would do for my son or my grandsons. So, it put a few mothers in those places of political power, and let's see what happens.
Well, the mothers are the best advocates we have up in the Tennessee General Assembly right now, the mothers and the grandmothers, sadly. And I would love to, there's a couple of changes I'd love to see. And there's a couple of women I'd love to put in those places. If I ever get to live to see that, I would be happy. If you've listened this far, you're one of the true blue Republicans that care about what's going on in our state. So let me tell you, we are the only organization in the state of Tennessee that's doing this kind of reporting so that you actually know who's conservative and who isn't. So if you would go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support, this has been the hardest damn thing I've ever had to raise money for. I've raised money for the Muscular Dystrophy Association, Baylor School, state and local candidates, federal candidates, my fraternity, church, you name it. This thing has been the hardest to get support for, because there's no money in keeping people free. And there's a lot of money in taking people's rights away. So if you go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support, if you give $50 or more, or a $10 plus recurring donation, we will send you this Don't California My Tennessee tumbler. If you put the convictions and the courage of the majority of these people on these committees up in Nashville in here, which would amount to about this much conviction and courage only when it's politically expedient. And if you put it in here and you shook it up, it would swell all the way to the brim and perhaps even overflow out of this, because it has magical properties. We'll also send you a Don't California My Tennessee bumper sticker, along with a Proud Tennessee Conservative bumper sticker, and you will get my heartfelt appreciation, plus this directory of your state and local, your state elected representatives in the House and the Senate. And I hope that thing changes. I hope that thing really changes a lot between now and the election, because we need some conservative legislators up there to quit lying on the campaign trail and to start doing things in committee. So please do go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support and hit that support button. You'd be one of about 3 people to do it. Moving right along. You've been very kind with your time today. I'll leave you with the last word. What else is going on that people might just want to know about, things that you're like, hey, people in Tennessee need to know about this, but they don't know about this, or here's my perspective on something. I'll let you just take it wherever you want to. I'll give you the last word. You run the show.
Boy, Brendan, I got a lot to say. There's a lot going on in DC. Inflation is sky high. Interest rates are going to continue to go up. What really concerns me right now is when they take away Title 42, which is coming in May. You need to be diligent in watching this. If they remove that, we expect, these are just expectations of 18,000 people a day at the border. We'll have 2 more million in 6 months. This is unfathomable. We cannot do this. And from what I'm hearing, they're just going to this is from Homeland Security. They're going to just send buses when they come across the border. They're just going to ship them into the interior. I don't know if they're going to process them or not. This is a huge, huge problem. So just stay on top of this, be aware, and make sure the state knows who's coming into our state and whether or not the governor allowed them to do that.
Explain Title 42 for those who may not know what it is.
Title 42 is what was put in place during the Trump administration because of the pandemic to keep people from coming across the border because of carrying COVID in. Okay. Now, this is what's so sinister. President Biden did not. He did away with it. Supreme Court said, that is lawful. You have to reinstigate that and reinstitute it. Well, did he do it? We still don't know if they're doing it. I've asked Secretary Mayorkas myself, and we don't know if they even reinstituted it. I know there's people that they did send back, but we don't know if they've come across the border again or not. March 28th and 29th, we saw 9,000 illegals come across the border in 2 days. That's going to be double per day. So if they get rid of that because they deem the pandemic over, in other words, I think May 23rd is the date, you're going to see an influx like you've never seen. And the Border Patrol know that they cannot handle it. So, and who knows who's coming over, Brandon?
Well,
we don't know.
We don't. I'll tell you something interesting. Maybe you'll just get your local news updates when you do your interview with me.
Okay.
Dennis Powers had a great bill that would make it illegal and prosecutable just for the transportation of illegal aliens by van, plane, bus into Tennessee. You could, as a company, you could be fined as an individual, as a pilot, as a bus driver, make it illegal. It passed the Senate. It was killed in the House, it passed the House, and it was killed yesterday in the Senate by Republicans. We had an E-Verify bill that had some teeth, that all the teeth were taken out. I mean, they just took the dentures out, they set them on the table, and they passed the bill. That got killed. We had a bill that would have prevented the taxpayer funding for illegal immigration, for illegal immigrant children at taxpayer expense. That got killed by Republicans. All of the reforms that would have stopped illegal immigration in Tennessee this year were killed by Republicans. It is sad that I put it this way: if we can't get any reforms in our state when we're in the middle of the worst travesty we've ever had on this subject, and everybody's running around and campaigning and talking about it, when can we get it? It's been depressing. I got to get on Prozac if I keep covering the legislature.
Well, remember who I am. I'm a pharmacist. We'll make sure you just have your doctor talk to me. But Brandon, it is I'd be questioning those legislators that voted against that and get their reasoning. I mean, people want to know. They better have done their due diligence. That is, look at the Governor Abbott, what he just did. He said, we're going to send them all up to D.C. That's what we're going to do, put them on buses. I had been preaching this for a long time about these NGOs or non-governmental organizations. There needs to be a revamping in how they get licensed and all these things. And that's what's happening. Those pilots you're talking about, those bus drivers, they're like, we know nothing because we have a federal contract. Man, I don't know anything, because I've talked to, there's reports out that policemen have talked to them when they land on the airstrips or when they bring the buses in. And they just take a federal contract. They know nothing about who they're transporting, why, or what. They act, I don't know if they know it or not, but they're saying they don't. So there has to be reform in that area too. But, if I were you, I'd be questioning why the legislators voted no and find out if they have valid reasoning as to why they killed the bill.
Well, I think we know the valid reasoning. It probably, when you get 60 to 70% of your contributions come from PAC money, and you take those for about 10 years, it's kind of hard to say no when those lobbyists come a-calling. It is very
Brandon, that's why do your due diligence, by gosh. And don't get me started, because this is, you shouldn't be beholden to anybody. You should be there because the people chose you, because they want you to make a difference no matter what. And that goes back to all politics is local. Look at them. And if they're not doing their job, then you've got a way to take care of business, and it's called a ballot box. And thank God we have one of the best voting integrity bills, and the way we do it in our state. I look at other states and I keep looking at these audits. I'm like, OMG, why aren't they doing something about what they've uncovered? But, that's one of the problems. But, I would do this. I would just say, what's your reasoning for voting no? And if they can't give you a valid reason, then people need to know why they couldn't give you a valid reason.
It's been difficult. There's conservatism and there's corporatism, and the more I cover it, the more I wonder which tail's wagging the dog. Anything else you want to talk about? Subjects just wide open, and then we'll wrap it up, because you've got important places to go.
Let me tell you this. One thing I'm hearing in Congress with everything that's going on in Ukraine, and they made the mistake in Afghanistan, the way they withdrew everybody. They made this mistake in Afghanistan by not sending lethal aid and cutting off the oil before anything happened on the minor incursion, as President Biden said, from Russia. We have to absolutely help Taiwan and do what they're asking us to do and help them, because they are on an island. And we met with the ambassador of Taiwan yesterday, and she's saying, look, you got to remember 90% of the chips made, if the semiconductors are made in Taiwan that service the world. So what happens when China goes in? That is the biggest adversarial threat we have, Brandon. And if you ask me, this is the biggest national security threat with the border and with China. Heck, the FBI Director Ray told me that's the biggest threat we have is China. Right now, we just need to look, and the buzzword is going to be this. You're going to hear food insecurity, because that's the breadbasket of Europe is Ukraine, and they have devastated that country right now. And they are taking ports to where they can't import or export things. So fertilizer's going up 500%. You're going to have farmers who question whether or not they can afford to plant. And I'm not just talking in our area. I'm talking the peanut farmers in Georgia, the beet farmers in Minnesota. I've talked to all these guys. You're going to see the word food insecurity from the Democratic side. Just be ready. And if I were you, I'd be stocking up. Okay. Inflation's going only higher. So get her done now.
I'm 2 months moving into a house that I've been building, and the old Biden lumber hit me for 70 grand, and everything else is up about 50%. Don't ever take my advice to build or buy a house. So I'm experiencing it right now, and many sleepless nights. You're very kind. I appreciate you. You're one of the few people that will come on that's elected and talk plainly about what's going on. And so I'm sure people value that. It resonates with the voters. While more people don't use that as a strategy, I've never been able to discover. But we appreciate your candor. We appreciate everything you do for being so vocal, because when you stand up, your constituents stand up. And when that happens, you give them courage to do things at the state and local level as well. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh, Brandon, no worries. This is the way I talk to everybody. So it doesn't matter. I mean, you put it on a 6th grade level, people will understand and they will follow that. So don't make it a calculus problem. Make it simple additions, the way I look at policy. And remember, this is my first go around in the politics world. And I told them, I said, don't you put the word politician beside my name, put pharmacist. Okay. That's how I want it. All right.
Very good. Well, next time, hopefully we'll have pharmacist Diana join us, probably more with prescriptions for all of our political ills. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Okay. Talk to you later, buddy.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your time. Know you're exceptionally busy. If you enjoyed this, please do go to wherever you get your podcast and type in Tennessee Conservative, or go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com for more interviews and stories like that. Until the next time, I'm Brandon Lewis, signing off.